The story of Gao Tu and Shen Wenlang is not just a reunion. It is a wound being torn open, a collision of pride, regret, and a love that could have been beautiful but instead became painfully unforgettable. From the beginning, Shen Wenlang admired one thing about Gao Tu above all else: his backbone, his unshakable pride. Unlike the countless others who circled Shen Wenlang for his power, his money, his status, Gao Tu never bowed his head. He was not dazzled by wealth. He was not charmed by luxury. And that made him different. That made him precious. But everything began to fracture on a day that seemed so ordinary. Gao Tu, perhaps out of carelessness, perhaps out of bitterness, joined in on a joke with colleagues. They laughed and said they would only stay if they were given shares in the company. And Gao Tu echoed their words. It was a single moment, a single sentence. Yet to Shen Wenlang, it was like a dagger through the chest. He didn't want Gao Tu to be like them. He didn't want Gao Tu to lower himself to the level of those who saw him only as a bank of endless wealth. He didn't want Gao Tu to love him for his conditions. He wanted Gao Tu to love him as a man, and so, silently, bitterness began to brew. Shen Wenlang clung to his pride, convincing himself that Gao Tu would never bow to him, no matter how much affection lay between them. But fate is merciless, because one day Gao Tu, the proud man Shen Wenlang thought would never bend, lowered himself. His voice trembled as he begged, humbly and desperately, for Shen Wenlang not to hurt him, not to hurt their child. That moment shattered Shen Wenlang completely. It was as if poison flooded his veins. The man he wanted to protect, the man he wanted to treasure, was now kneeling before him in despair. And Shen Wenlang could do nothing but choke on regret. His mind, cruelly, dragged him back to the past. To the day Gao Tu had once asked him softly, "What will you do if your Omega has a child in the future?" To the day Gao Ming sneered across the restaurant table, "If you want us to have an abortion, give me 10 million. Not a penny less." Those were the moments Shen Wenlang should have spoken. Should have told Gao Tu the truth that burned in his chest. "I hate Omegas, but if that Omega is you, I will love you until it drives me mad. I don't like children, but if the child is yours, I could never bear to see him harmed." But pride chained his tongue. Fear tied his hands. And so he stayed silent. Now it was too late. Too late to reach back through time. Too late to rewrite the past. And so, while Shen Wenlang drowned in the poison of regret, the world around them continued. Little Peanut, bright, cheerful, spoiled by endless love, was nothing like the adults. He hated sadness. He hated gloom. And when he saw his godfather looking as if he had eaten bitter plums, Peanut did the one thing he always did. He climbed onto his lap, settled himself on Shen Wenlang's knees, and with his sweet childish voice spoke up. "I'm sorry I bumped you earlier, but your mask is so pretty. Can I borrow it?" He said it to Gao Lele, the child in Gao Tu's arms. At first, Lele hesitated. He was shy. But how could anyone resist Peanut's bright dumpling-like face? With a small, gentle motion, he took off his mask and handed it over. And in that instant, Shen Wenlang's world shifted. When his eyes landed on Gao Lele's face, he froze. His bitterness evaporated. His lips that had tasted only sourness now curled with sweetness. Because Gao Lele was him, a mirror, a reflection. A child who carried Shen Wenlang's features so clearly that only a blind man could deny it. A DNA test? Laughable. This was blood calling to blood. At that moment, Shen Wenlang wanted to scream, to cry, to laugh. He wanted to grab Peanut, hug Lele, and declare to the heavens, "This is my son, my flesh, my blood." But reality, merciless as ever, offered him no such luxury. 3 months later, Gao Lele began noticing strange things. His father, Gao Tu, disappeared often in the middle of the night. At first, it was confusing. But then, when a new neighbor moved in next door, everything became clearer. This neighbor was different. He was enthusiastic, persistent, and far too close. He called Gao Tu baby, hovered around him with shameless intimacy, and every time he appeared, Gao Tu's face burned red. Lele saw more. He saw the day at the amusement park when the neighbor hugged his father at the door, crying with tears streaming down his cheeks. He heard the pleading words, "I like you so much. Can you give me another chance?" And he watched as his father's face darkened with emotions too complicated for a child to understand. But what troubled Lele the most wasn't the man's persistence. It wasn't even the sight of him holding his father. It was the scent. A strange, soothing fragrance of sage and iris that lingered in the air. A fragrance that shouldn't even exist. The flowers weren't in bloom. Yet night after night, the scent filled their home. And whenever Lele breathed it in, he felt safe. He felt calm. He felt wrapped in something he didn't understand. Until one night, Lele had eaten too much watermelon and woke in the middle of the night. Quietly, he climbed out of bed, padded down the hall to the bathroom, and then he heard it voices soft. Low. Coming from the living room, the curtains were drawn. The lights dim, and then laughter, the neighbor's laugh. Just one more kiss. Please, just once. Lele's heart thumped. He crept closer. Then came his father's voice, low and tender. Don't make a fuss. Don't wake Lele up. The man chuckled again. Then wait until he's asleep. Come next door. Don't avoid me. And in that moment, the truth slammed into Lele's chest. The man wasn't just a neighbor. He was Shen Wenlang. Lele stumbled back, rushing into his room before they could see him. He dove under the quilt, his small body trembling, his mind spinning. But he couldn't sleep. Because in the air, once again was that fragrance. Sage and iris, sweet and calming. It wrapped him like a lullaby. It whispered safety. And for the first time, Lele realized why it made him feel so warm. Because it belonged to him, his other parent. When Gao Tu crept into the room later, carefully tucking in the quilt, Lele opened his big, bright eyes. Eyes that mirrored Shen Wenlang so perfectly it was almost cruel. And softly he spoke. Dad, if you want to go next door, you can go now. You don't have to wait until I fall asleep. Because deep down, even as a child, he understood. One day soon, he would not be just Gao Lele. He would be Shen Lele. This is the painful reunion of Gao Tu and Shen Wenlang. A story of pride that destroyed love. A story of regret that came too late. And a story of a child who unknowingly carried the truth in his smile. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss the next chapter of the Abo Desire series.